Drivers and Danica, start your engines!
Pull those belts down tight one more time. Warm up those tires. Hit your marks and let's go racing, boys and girls. NASCAR, Indycar, Formula One, Formula E, NHRA, and local dirt track and drag strip racing talk. This is the fastest hour in radio.
Where'd you go? Where's your home? How'd you end up all alone? Can you hear me now? Hear me now.
Here's your host, Steve West and Dustin Harmer, with producer John Myers.
2/3 of us get to be out of the BJCC because of things that were beyond our control. Unfortunately, producer John Myers will not be able to join us this afternoon.
I'm very upset by that.
I am too, actually.
I'm a little bummed.
I know. We're bummed.
Yes.
But you and I are going to be out of the BJCC at the aforementioned Birmingham Home and Garden Show from 3 to 5.
That's right.
Will be easy to tell. We're the two guys that are walking around wearing racing shirts with hats that say Fastest Hour in Radio on them.
That's right, because that's how we roll.
That's right. So come on by, see us this afternoon. You can also join us in many, many ways here. We have talked many, many times about the social media sites of Facebook, facebook.com/The Fastest Hour in Radio, all the others.
That's right. Twitter, @Fastest Hour. Instagram, @Fastest Hour. And if you've missed the show this morning, you missed the replays, you can also catch us, as always, at your leisure. Simply go to youtube.com and look up The Fastest Hour in Radio. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, because that's going to let you know when new shows are posted. You'll have a nice little email come in your email box, so you can always keep up to date, even when you miss out.
There you go. So lots to get to today. Lots of on-track action.
Yes, that was probably the best part of the week thus far.
Absolutely. So going back to last week, Sprint Unlimited, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about the NHRA. Got their first action of the year underway. Thursday, Can-Am Duels. Last night, Camping World Truck Series.
Oh.
Today, Xfinity. Tomorrow, Sprint Cup. Welcome to the Daytona 500. Welcome to 2016 season officially underway. That said, first things first.
First things first.
If you're listening on either of the shows on Saturday, just before we got underway, we had the Entertainment Roundtable.
Yes.
And another round of Deadpool reviews.
Oh, yeah.
Last Saturday, I went to go see it for a second time in 2 days, and I brought you and I brought John.
That was a bad idea for him, wasn't it?
No, it was a great idea. I knew exactly why I liked it so much the first time around. John, real quick, your thoughts on Deadpool and a rating from 1 to 10.
9.7.
Okay, I like it. Goes right to that. Quick thoughts, otherwise.
Quick thoughts, it wasn't long enough. It felt like the hour and a half you were in the theater was actually 30 minutes. Maybe. Very, very fast-paced. It kept you engaged throughout the entire film.
Okay. So 9.7 for him. That ups our average from the Entertainment Roundtable to just a little over 8.5, if I'm remembering correctly. Where do you fall?
I gave it a 9.8. I took off 0.2 for the length. I was so hooked on this movie from start to finish. I was already amped up as it was.
Classic way of dealing with television shows, movies, and radio shows. Leave them wanting more. That's the mark of a big success.
Yeah, well,
if NASCAR win the movies, this would be Daytona. That's how fast it was.
Wow.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. I like that. That's a great metaphor, John.
Well, thank you.
That was outstanding work. Now, Deadpool, amazing.
Yeah.
I think they did an outstanding job from the beginning to the end. When I heard that Ryan Reynolds was going to be Deadpool,
right?
That was the role for him. Every time you've ever seen him in any other movies, in any other context, he's always been that smart aleck guy.
Sure.
So he was made for that role. So thank you so much to Marvel, and thank you so much to Ryan Reynolds for really selling Deadpool the way it should have been.
Now, if you have not been listening to the Entertainment Roundtable, we do need to make this particular clarification. This is an R-rated film.
Yes, it is.
And it deserves its R rating.
Yeah,
Very much so.
I did not bring my son.
There are numerous adult situations and a lot of language.
Yes.
Violence and all the other stuff that's going on there. This gets an R rating. It deserves its R rating. Just understand that. So if you're wanting to go see Deadpool and you're thinking, hey, I've got this, 13-year-old son or daughter of mine who might also be interested in comic book films because they love Captain America and Iron Man and Superman and Batman and all the others, not this one.
Yeah, especially if you know the comic of Deadpool, the character of Deadpool. You're stupid if you bring your child.
Yes.
Especially if you get upset once you get in the movie theater and you come out and you go, well, that was just bad for my child.
Yeah.
Well, you're the one who brought it.
Did you look at the rating?
Yeah. Did you see the rating?
Just because they happen to be a superhero from the comic books doesn't mean that you're automatically family friendly.
That's right.
Okay. All right. So that said, let's see what else we can get ourselves into. How about
a lot
on-track action?
That's right.
Saturday night, last Saturday night specifically, Sprint Unlimited Cash Grab unofficially that kicks off the racing season for NASCAR for 2016 became the Sprint Unlimited Demolition Derby.
Oh, yeah.
25 cars started the event. By the time all was said and done, only 2 cars did not have some form of damage somewhere on it, and only 15 of those cars crossed the finish line. Denny Hamlin grabbed the win. Joey Logano, coming from the last starting position on the night, claimed second on the night. Several big names crashed out earlier in the event, so the rest of the top 10 has a kind of an interesting look. Paul Menard third, Kyle Larson fourth, Casey Mears filling out the top 5, 6 through 10, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Kurt Busch, Austin Dillon, Brad Keselowski, and Greg Biffle. Denny Hamlin, who underwent ACL surgery just after the 2015 season came to an end, had said during last month's media days he felt he was about 50%. After Saturday night, felt he was about at 75% of his capabilities. If that's 75% of his capabilities, we could be in for a year that Joe Gibbs Racing has been hoping for out of that number 11 car, because he came in with all that promise. He's shown the ability to win races. He's shown the ability to get into the chase, but he has never been able to get over that last speed bump, if you will, and become that championship. If this is 75% of Denny Hamlin, this is something that could be promising for Joe Gibbs.
I'm not convinced.
I'm not either, but...
Yeah, I'm not convinced. You brought up a very good point, is the fact that he can do great all season long, but when it's time to actually perform in the chase, Denny Hamlin is nowhere to be found, or he finds some new and inventive way to put himself out of it. You look back a couple years at Homestead. He was there. He was ready to go. He was running up front, and he makes mistakes. He makes his own mistakes. He builds himself up so much that he puts so much pressure up there that he just loses it at some point.
That said, we said this last year. In fact, none of us chose Kyle Busch going into the chase.
No, none of us.
Because of the fact that we felt like Kyle Busch was going to fall flat on his face at some point in time.
Which he normally does. I mean,
exactly.
Not saying he doesn't.
Same thing.
Yeah.
So last year he's able to kind of eliminate all that stuff. Can Denny Hamlin learn something from his teammate?
No.
All right.
And it's not the fact that I'm saying no because... You know, it's not like I don't like Denny. I like Denny. Genuinely, he's a great guy. He's a great racer, especially when you look at some of the tracks that he's really good at. You go to the paperclip at Martinsville.
Sure.
That's a Hamlin backyard. That's his backyard right there.
They're in Richmond. He loves those 2 tracks.
But that's the thing. When you can put it all together, we talk about it. We preach it. You have to be there at the start, the begin, or the middle, and the end.
Yeah.
He's not there ever at the end.
He can get 2/3 of that.
And not that I'm saying anything about JGR, but they're not. I mean, they're a team. They are a team. They're classified as a team, but I don't see a team aspect there.
You don't think that the 4 of them necessarily work all that well together?
No, unless we go to the plate tracks. Then you're kind of forced to do that.
I will disagree with you on one part. I think the Denny Hamlin, Kyle Busch side of things, you're correct about. Because of the fact that they have a previous relationship at Roush Fenway, I think Matt Kenseth and Carl Edwards work well together, and they probably do exchange some information because I think that there are similarities between the 2 of them.
Yeah.
But for Kyle and Denny, I think I agree with you.
Yeah, there's a lot being held back over there at JGR, though. If they could really just all get on the same page, JGR would be a force to be reckoned with in NASCAR with Toyota. They could just take everything and it would be fine.
Sure.
But they got to do that first.
All right, Sunday afternoon, front row for this weekend's Daytona 500 was set. To no one's real surprise, Hendrick Motorsports' car sits on the pole. It's a bit more of a surprise that it happens to be the youngest pole sitter in Daytona 500 history, Chase Elliott, who in his first year driving the number 24 for the now retired Jeff Gordon announced his presence with authority, if you like the old Major League reference there. He posted a top speed of 196.314 miles per hour, the second best speed of the afternoon. That belonged to a Joe Gibbs Racing car, in this case, Matt Kenseth. Those were the only 2 spots up for grabs because everything else was set either through the Can-Am duels or referring back to speed from what you had on Sunday.
Which, as we know here later as we get into this, we're going to find out that's all out the window.
Yeah, it pretty much is. The only other 2 positions that were guaranteed, and it wasn't it wasn't that they were guaranteed a specific starting position. It was that they were guaranteed to be in the race.
Yeah, locked in.
Was that the Wood Brothers number 21 with Ryan Blaney and BK Racing's Matt DiBenedetto cemented their Daytona 500 starting slots. They had the fastest speeds among the non-chartered teams, and we knew that 4 of them were going to get in. Those 2 had the 2 fastest speeds. They were guaranteed in. So in the end, Can-Am duels, you're trying to figure out, number 1, where you're going to start, and number 2, 2 guys out of the, 7 that are left are going to end up going to the Daytona 500, and 5 more are going to be going back to Charlotte, North Carolina, with their tail tucked between their legs.
Or they're going to be going up to the stands to watch a great race.
Well, yeah, that could be
Or
true,
on top
too.
of their haulers.
To the first Can-Am duel, Dale Earnhardt Jr., hey, here's a shock, dominated the event, claimed the win on the same day his father happened to have passed away at Daytona International Speedway some 15 years earlier. He claimed his 5th win in a dual race in his career. That puts him 3rd on the all-time list of dual wins, behind his father's 12 dual wins, just behind the retired Jeff Gordon's 6 as well. In that process, Michael McDowell raced his way into the Daytona 500. He claimed 14th on the evening. It was kind of fun to watch them go into the night because you had seen the sun begin to set during the first Can-Am duel, and by the time it was all done, it was completely dark. But Michael McDowell gets in on the first run. Good run for him in the Circle Sport Levine family racing.
I tell you what, it was extremely great to watch this race, and the reason was, and Dale Earnhardt Jr., we always know he's going to be good when we go to Daytona.
Yeah.
It's a
Or
given.
Talladega.
But the way that he manipulated the air, did you get a chance to see that one pass that he put on Denny Hamlin?
He's able to go out there and do some things that most of the other drivers won't even try.
Yeah.
That's the thing that gets me.
But it was weird. I don't know if it's the aero package that we've got this year, but the guys were acting, not say differently, but they were attacking differently. They were
Agreed.
really sucking up to each other and just kind of like slingshotting off and just really harnessing that air. It was a different way to watch them
They got
race.
this lower aerodynamics package is what they call it, which kind of lets off a little bit of the downforce there, but in some ways I think it creates a little bit more of a what NASCAR people call dirty air, which, there's a whole lot of air movement and circulations and things like that. And I really believe that Dale Earnhardt Jr. learned a lot from his father.
Yes.
And there are drivers. I would love to have seen, quite frankly, Jeff Gordon be in this because Jeff Gordon kind of knows how to do all of this and play the slingshot. Jimmy Johnson's learning it. I would have been fascinating to see Tony Stewart because Tony Stewart knows how to suck up pretty well at some of these tracks as well. It'll be interesting to see when he finally does come back, whenever it is, how he does react at a restrictor plate track. But Dale Earnhardt Jr. is still the master of the drivers that are currently in this series.
Yeah, and it was great. Like I said, that pass, that was if we were watching Kansas or Kentucky or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
The
He
way
made it
that he
effortless.
went up high and then just dive bombed in and just floated right up.
Yeah.
It was perfect. It was like we were watching a cookie cutter track,
Yeah, it was
but it was a
textbook.
super speedway.
It was textbook. Second duel saw the 2015 Cup champion Kyle Busch claiming the win. So let's see. Hendrick Motorsports, Joe Gibbs Racing on the front row of the Daytona 500. Your winners of Can-Am duels 1 and 2 are Hendrick Motorsports and Joe Gibbs Racing. I'm noticing a trend.
There's a trend.
Anyway, he was able to be out front as a last lap crash messed up Jimmy Johnson, Martin Truex Jr., AJ Allmendinger, which made them all go to backup cars for Sunday. And Matt Kenseth, who was actually going to be in his 3rd car of Speed Week. So get this, Matt Kenseth is able to go out there, post the 2nd fastest time on Sunday, and now he's got to go from the front row all the way to the back for the Daytona 500.
Which, doesn't necessarily mean you're out of trouble. I mean, look at Denny Hamlin. Well, you know what? I take that back. Denny Hamlin had some damage during his
Yes, he
Can-Am
did.
duel and still came out and won the Sprint Unlimited and still won the race.
Guess who ends up on the front row with Chase Elliott for the Daytona 500?
That would be Kyle Busch.
Yes, so we go from one Joe Gibbs racing car to another. By the way, the guy who raced his way in to the Daytona 500, Robert Richardson Jr.
The Cinderella story.
3 weeks ago, this guy was on his Texas farm baling hay.
Yeah, he was so humble in his interview too, talking about being on the farm baling hay.
Yeah.
And now he's running for the Daytona 500.
Yay.
But I mean, it's great when that actually happens.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
we talk about it all the
fantastic.
time, how guys set up, they get ready and all that. He didn't have time to get ready, but he still
He really
came out
didn't.
there and performed. Great to see him in the big dance on Sunday.
In some cases, that's probably the best way to be. You can't overthink it.
Yes.
Hey, come on, let's drive. Okay, I'm there. And you can't overthink the enormity of the situation you're put
Yeah.
in. You just got to jump in the car and you got to go. And you start to get I'll let this stuff get into your head, you start to freak out.
Yeah, you have too much time on your hands to think, and that can really put you behind the 8 ball fast, but not for Robert Richardson Jr. Great to see him.
Absolutely. The Elliots, Chase and Bill, are now the fourth father-son combination to claim Daytona 500 pole positions. With Chase, he adds to his father's 4 Daytona 500 poles, 1985, 86, 87, and again in 2001, the first year when Dodge came back. The others include Richard and Kyle Petty. I'd forgotten Kyle had actually claimed a pole at the Daytona 500.
Oh, that's right, he did.
Bobby and Davey Allison, and, of course, Dale Earnhardt and Dale Earnhardt Jr. 3 cars had qualifying problems. They include the number 78 Furniture Row Racing Toyota of Martin Truex Jr. He had a roof flap issue. He could not fix it to NASCAR's satisfaction, so he missed out on qualifying, started his Can-Am duel at the tail end of the race, to which he promptly then was wrecked. Stewart Haas Racing entries for both Kevin Harvick and Brian Vickers, the 4 and the 14, respectively, had their qualifying times disallowed. Both of them failed post-qualifying inspection. They were determined to have had illegal parts. That means that those cars moved to the back of their qualifying races on Thursday, which they did pretty well. Kevin Harvick did better than Brian Vickers.
Yeah.
But both of them at least were able to get up and be, I think both of them have top 20 starting spots, if I remember correctly.
They do. Harvick did an exceptional job in his duel. But the thing they talk about with the illegal parts, all it was a spacing issue on a track bar.
It's weird.
But they call it an illegal part. It's just it's that gray area. We talk about it all the time. Sometimes you get caught, sometimes you don't. You're Jimmy Johnson.
There you go. Over to Pomona. Circle K Winter Nationals, NHRA's season opener. Ron Capps able to douse one of the longest winning streaks of his career. He claimed the season opener in the funny car division. He downed Del Worsham, claiming his 46th win of his career. A 3.981 second quarter mile time, 324.28 miles per hour.
Hello.
Over to Top Fuel, Steve Torrance came out the winner. He outgunned Doug Kalida in the finals. He ran the quarter mile 3.735 seconds at 326.48 miles an hour. This is a quarter mile from a dead stop.
Yeah.
This is what's fascinating to me about the NHRA.
Yeah, I got a chance to watch I didn't get a chance to watch it live, but I got a chance to see the replay. I didn't realize it was the replay until I saw it ticking across the bottom of the screen. So,
like, oh, he already won.
But there were several races, several times in that I was just so in awe of how these guys do it.
By the way, first ever time in Pro Stock that they're running electronic fuel injection. They had been running carburetors until just this year. Greg Anderson picks up the win in the first ever Pro Stock event. That'll be a trivia question later. Holding off his teammate in the process. He edged Jason Line in a photo finish. Got off the line just a little bit quicker. 6.617 quarter mile time, 207.85 miles per hour.
They were talking about that, as a matter of fact, the EFI, since they switched over to it this year. And the guys, they said a lot of the drivers were really kind of about it at first, but then they turned around, and now that they're getting a chance to actually run it and see how it works, everybody's happy. So, things start off bad, but they turn out good.
There you go. Let's do one more bit of racing here, and then I'm going to get to Burl and Sylacauga. I want to get all the racing action that we've already dealt with out of the way. Last night, by the way, if you're listening to our live or replayed Saturday show, it's last night. The Camping World Truck Series got their 2016 season underway. The NextEra Energy Resources 250, love these names, Daytona. They tested out the newly revised NASCAR overtime kind of way of looking at things. Johnny Sauter is new with a new team, GMS Racing, but he showed why he's consistently been in the top 10, if not top 5 in Truck Series points each and every year over the past, half decade to a decade?
Something like that.
I mean, he's so consistent. It's amazingly. He was out front for most of the night, claimed the win in a race that was largely clean until 7 laps to go when the big one hit. 17 trucks were involved in the big one. Cleanup brought out the red flag. Some 30 minutes later, they get back to rolling. By the time they started to show the green flag, it was effectively NASCAR overtime. Only 2 laps were left. They went 3 wide from the drop of the flag, but they did make it to the final lap before another crash happened. Christopher Bell was turned around, tossed up in the air, ended up rolling over at least 13 times.
Yeah, I counted 13.
Yeah, really. And he did, too.
Christopher Bell would hurt you right now.
But Steve Winwood is going royalties. That said, Christopher Bell, and this goes to how far we have come.
Oh, yes.
In racing when it comes to safety. I would have been real worried about this had it been IndyCar or Formula One. Maybe even somewhat in NHRA, but a little less so because at least they've got the halos that are up around the drivers in Top Fuel. But in NASCAR, you think about this man, after rolling over 13 times, somehow that truck ended up on its 4 wheels. I'll still never get that.
Yeah.
he, with a little bit of help, because it did mess up the roof of the truck, so he needed a little help to kind of maneuver his way out of the truck. Once he's out of the truck, the man walks away under his own power.
And it just goes to show, the safety aspect with NASCAR. I mean, it was actually really weird to the fact of once the truck race was over, they had I watched the show that came on after, and it was looking back at Daytona.
Untold Stories.
Yeah, so it was talking about Smokey Yunick.
Oh, yeah.
And how Smokey had made his own roll cages and stuff, and they were showing some of it. And then they showed that wreck at Daytona that he had the roll cage in, and the guy was fine. And that just goes, that's where it started. Smokey Yunick started it up right there, and now we are where we are. And that's why Christopher Bell was able to get out of that truck and just walk away.
Absolutely
It's
amazing.
tremendous job to NASCAR.
It really is. So your winner, Johnny Sauter. Following him, Ryan Truex. Yes, the younger brother of Martin Truex Jr. Parker Kligerman. Nice to see him back in racing again. He finishes third. Brandon Brown, Travis Quapple make up the top 5. Tyler Young, Ben Rhodes, Daniel Hemrick, Scott Lagasse, and Matt Crafton complete the top 10.
And a big shout out, because I was pulling for him last night. I told you, Grant Enfinger.
Yes.
Did
leading for a long time.
Tremendous job. He was, and not just him, but the whole field. They were doing so well. I'm 3 wide at Daytona with trucks. It's unheard of, but they did it for so long. We knew something was going to happen. But Grant Enfinger, you did an outstanding job, Alabama boy.
That's right. The reason we mentioned him, he comes from South Alabama, down in the Mobile area, Fairhope specifically, and we'd love to see some Alabama guys begin to start to dominate NASCAR again.
We had him on the show when he was in ARCA.
Mm-hmm. We may need to try
We're
and
going to have to reach out to Grant again.
All right, rest of your weekend racing-wise is all NASCAR. Xfinity Series Saturday today as we are live on the air. They run the 2016 season opener. Here's a name for you. The Power Shares QQQ 300 at Daytona. I feel like I went back to my James Best Roscoe P. Coltrane. QQQ.
Yeah, you got to like take a big deep breath before you put that out.
Really. Fox Sports 1 and MRN Radio have your coverage. Begins at 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central Time, right as we're downtown at the BJCC.
Yes.
Sprint Cup Series and the so-called Super Bowl of stock car racing, the Daytona 500, which really it should be different because the Daytona 500 was first, so it actually should be listed as the Daytona 500 of the NFL. But that's another story entirely. They get going Sunday. Fox and MRN Radio coverage starts at noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central Time. We ready for racing?
I'm so ready for racing.
I wish we had a video camera in here.
I know.
That's all I got to say.
It's amazing. He's jumping up and down like a little school good.
Hey, this is how we all are this time of the year.
Absolutely. I got to admit, I believe you are correct. All right, let's go to the phones, which you can too. 9411011, toll free 866-551-9933 down in Sylacauga. Burl checking us out again. How are you today, Burl?
Okay. I got some questions about Talladega Short Track.
We'll do our best to answer them.
Are they racing tonight?
Not tonight, no.
No. Well, when do they race?
I think it's coming towards the end of March, I believe. I think we're about a month out right now from on-track action.
Yeah, give or take. They still got to get the grandstand, not the grandstand, the tower rebuilt. Which, from what we understand, is quite well on its way from when we talked to late model Mark last week. He should be calling in here shortly. We can certainly get a lot more definite information for you then. What else you got?
How much does it cost to get in?
Not that much. Most of the time I've seen tickets are, what, $10 at most?
Yeah, it's usually 10 unless they've got the Neesmith
real special racing.
The Neesmith in or the Southern All-Stars are in, and I think the price goes up maybe $20. But that's another thing we can definitely ask late model Mark about. But we need to start doing that each week with whatever series is running out there. Maybe talk to Mark about letting us know what the prices are that weekend. But it's not real bad. It's actually a great price. You get a whole night of action for a very low price.
Yeah, usually they're running at least 5 or 6 different divisions of racing in there. So yeah, you'll get plenty of racing for your money.
And I assume they got concessions where you can get a hot dog and stuff.
Oh,
they certainly will. Yes. That'll be part of the rebuilt tower that unfortunately burned down a couple of months ago.
But big shout out during the Ice Bowl to all the other tracks in the area that sent all of their concession stands in to help out
Sending
for the
portable
Ice Bowl.
trucks, and one of the local pizza places was constantly delivering pizzas over there so people could have that. So yeah, they'll have concessions for you. That won't be a problem.
Okie doke. Thanks.
All right. Keep listening. We'll get more of those questions answered when late model Mark calls in. Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Right. Thanks, Burl. Appreciate
Take care,
it so
Burl.
much. We're looking forward to that, though, when they get back into action.
Talladega Short Track season opener, March the 14th.
March 14th.
Okay, so midway through March. So a little bit less than a month from now is the time. So
I'll be ringing in St. Patty's Day at the track.
Hey,
because
there
that's
you
the
go.
17th.
Yeah, absolutely.
On the Tuesday, the 10th, they're opening up for practice
Okay.
for all divisions.
There we go.
So if you happen to have some time off,
Go to stop
during the
on
week.
out there.
Yeah, it might be kind of fun to go and check that out. All right, here we go. Let's talk about some of these other different bits of news here. Now, BeyondTheFlag.com is reporting that Brian Vickers may be one and done in the number 14 as he fills in for the injured Tony Stewart. Reports began to come out about Tuesday that Stewart Haas Racing was not going to stick with Vickers until Stewart could make his comeback later on the season, whenever that is. They're going to take Vickers out of the 14 after the 500. They're going to replace him with the younger Dillon brother, Ty. Now, Ty is already slated to run a select number of races in the 14, but at this point in time, or at least up until that point, it had been thought that those were only the ones that were slated to have Bass Pro Shops on the hood, since that was a company that sponsored both Ty Dillon and Tony Stewart. Now it seems like it could be a little bit earlier, and it may not have everything to do with just the sponsorship. NBC Sports reporting that Dillon could actually be behind the wheel of the 14 in Atlanta, the second race of the season, in addition to Phoenix and Auto Club Speedway, and then Talladega later this spring. So Phoenix Auto Club and Talladega were the ones that were confirmed he was going to be driving. They've now added Atlanta. The report adds that Stewart Haas Racing is not expected to make an announcement about Stewart's fill-in past this weekend until about Wednesday. So we're not sure yet. A lot of stuff is still up in the air. Brian Vickers is certainly appreciative of this opportunity. We know that. I hate to think that it was all because of a sponsor deal that ends up with Ty Dillon behind the wheel of this car.
You know who's not appreciative of Brian Vickers?
Stewart Haas Racing?
No.
Okay, who?
The fans. And I'm going to call the fans out right now.
Okay.
And I'll tell you what, you want to talk about some people that really need to get a grip on themselves.
Right.
The way that they thrashed Brian Vickers because he cut a tire
Yes.
was unreal.
Which, by the way, out of his control.
Yeah, that is something that he is not controlling. So the next time you self-proclaimed experts want to chime in on somebody's driving abilities, it's a cut tire. Any driver out there in that position at Daytona that has a cut tire is going to have an issue that can result in that.
Let me say this, and this was kind of the same deal that we saw when Tony Stewart announced his retirement last year, and he named, remember this, Tony Stewart named Clint Boyer to be his replacement in the 14 beginning in the 2017 season.
Yes.
Everyone's sitting there going, oh, I can't believe that they chose Clint Boyer, such a loser. You know, if you claim to be a Tony Stewart fan, understand that it was Tony Stewart who chose Clint Boyer.
Yeah, Tony picked this guy.
Understand that it was Tony Stewart who selected Brian Vickers to fill in for him.
They're not
if
just
you
there for
claim
a
to
reason.
be a fan, understand why it is that the man who's won 3 championships and has made quite a successful career as a series owner is making these decisions.
You go drive on 190 miles an hour with a cut tire and see how you deal with it.
Yeah, good luck with that. We got to take a break. When we come back, Kyle Busch got a parking ticket in his number 18.
Uh-oh.
We'll tell you about it next.
You're listening to the fastest hour in radio on Superstation 101.
At the karaoke bar, Greg shows the telltale signs of being wasted. First off, he's in a karaoke bar. Next, he tells the waitress she can be his backup singer. Greg asks his buddy if he met his backup singer. He takes another shot and realizes he's not sitting with his buddy. Then he spends an hour searching for the perfect song in the food menu. On stage, he can't read the lyrics on the monitor. He explains to everyone that he can't read gobbledygook. Greg decides to freestyle rap. He keeps repeating the line, "I don't read no gobbledygook, boy." The power is cut, and Greg offers to sign autographs out back.
It's easy to tell if you've had way too many to drive. But what if you've had just one too many to drive? Never underestimate just a few. Buzz driving is drunk driving. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Transportation, the Ad Council, and this station.
Ryan Newman wins the Goodies Fast Relief 500.
Hi, this is Ryan Newman. Being a race car driver has its perks, yet I can't think of anyone who deserves better service and support than our nation's veterans and service members. That's why VA and DoD have created eBenefits. eBenefits gives fast-track, 24/7 access to the military and VA benefits and information you need most. Go to www.ebenefits.va.gov or just do a search for VA eBenefits.
Brought to you by the Department of Veterans Affairs. Good day, folks. I'm Jim Butters, and I invite you to listen in every Saturday morning from 9 to 11 a.m. to Your House Inside and Out right here on Superstation 101. This is a call-in program where we try and answer some of your questions about your house inside and out. Brought to you in part by Vulcan Termite and Pest Control. So tune in every Saturday from 9 to 11 a.m. right here on Superstation 101.
I am Garrett Lloyd, and you're listening to the fastest hour in radio on Superstation 101.1 WYDE.
Back to green flag action on the fastest hour in radio on Superstation 101.
Hey, welcome back in, listening to the fastest hour in radio, Superstation 101 WYDE. Quick reminder that we're going to be out and about later on today, Saturday.
Yes.
Going to be at the BJCC, fastest hour in radio, going to be taking over the booth
Holding
for
it
Crawford
down.
Broadcasting down at the
That's
Birmingham
right.
Home and Garden Show from 3 to 5. So if you're going to find yourself down there, come on by, say hello to us. We'd love to see you.
Come say hi.
We also want to take some time and thank our fine sponsor, Wild Vapors, and we've talked about them on numerous occasions, but we also want to mention the fact that we're into the new year. We're starting to already think about spring because you think about it. Racing's underway, so I feel a little bit warmer already. I found out the pitchers and catchers and most of the players are reporting to spring training in Florida and Arizona.
You're happy.
So I'm like, you know what? Spring effectively is here for me.
It is.
Groundhogs, forget them. Don't care. I'm ready to go. But we talk about spring cleaning. It's not just cleaning up your room or cleaning up parts of your house or cleaning up the entire house and or cleaning up your car. It could involve cleaning yourself up as well.
That's right. You can clean yourself up. If you are a current smoker, it's time to put the cigarettes down. It's time to go to a healthier alternative, and you can do that just by visiting our good friends Shelly and Eddie Bowman at Wild Vapors in Sylacauga and Alexander City. You talk about spring cleaning. You're going to have to do some spring cleaning on your house because once you put the cigarettes down and you go to vaping, you have a lot of dirty work that you're going to have to do. And mark my words, it's going to take some time. You're going to realize just what you've been putting in your body that is so extremely harmful for you by cleaning it off the wall, scraping it off the wall, needless to say.
That, and you're going to be thinking about your wardrobe at that point in time. So hopefully your washing machine is up to par because you're going to be thinking, I'm going to be giving it a workout.
I just moved. I found a box the other day that had clothes in it that I had not washed since I was a smoker.
Oh, wow.
Well, actually, they were washed. But I'm not dirty. But they were washed, and they were in a box. I opened them up. I had to close that box up so fast because I didn't realize how bad it smelled. And I've talked about it all the time. You don't have to stink anymore. You can switch over to a healthy alternative and find a way to actually put the cigarettes down and go to something that's going to work. They have tailored their juices basically for you to work your way down through the nicotine without doing with the patches and the gums and all that other stuff. But the best thing you can do is to stop down, talk to Shelly or Eddie today at Wild Vapors in Sylacauga in the Walmart Shopping Center or in Alexander City just around the corner from Central Alabama Community College. And they have a great new line of juices, and I have to tout this one. It's called Culture. They have 3 flavors, and I'll tell you right now, there is an apple pie that is called Tagged from Culture. Oh, it is absolutely amazing. And we talk about it each week. This doesn't have sucralose. It doesn't have aspartame. It doesn't have diacetyl. Why? Because Shelly and Eddie are staunchly against any of those extra additives that are not needed in your juices. And that's why they sell juices that don't have anything like that in it whatsoever. For mods, for cotton, for wire, for anything, you need to stop down and see them.
Not only are they not needed, they're also bad for you.
Extremely bad.
In some cases, they're worse for you than the nicotine and tar that you've been inhaling through the cigarettes.
Yeah, so if you go to just any Joe Schmo shop, you're not going to get the proper information. You're going to get something that's worse for you than cigarettes. Stop by a reputable dealer.
Yeah.
Stop by Wild Vapors today in
Now,
Sylacauga.
here's the thing. If you are a ways away, and we have found out that they have gotten customers that have heard about them right here on this show, and we thank you, from Jasper and Coleman and other places, maybe you think it's a little far. You know what? They're going to help you out as well, because call them, talk to them, and you know what? They'll send you the stuff through the mail, too.
That's right. All you got to do is give them a call. Simple phone call, and you can change your life. 256-369-2569, or you can hit them up on Facebook, facebook.com/wild.vapors.5. Shelly posts up great information. You can hit them up there as well. But whatever you do, it's time to set yourself free with Wild Vapors today.
All right. Back into talking about racing action, or specifically Kyle Busch getting himself into trouble. Kyle Busch was up in New York City, brought his number 18 or one of the number 18s up, and was kind of doing a little bit of pre-race publicity for this weekend's Daytona 500. And they decided to park his car along Columbus Circle in what's reported to be a no parking zone. New York City's finest were happy to help out and try to get a little bit of money at the same time. They slapped a wheel lock on the right front tire and then loaded the windshield up with several parking tickets. Turns out this is actually, the team didn't do anything wrong. They had appreciation. It was a nice stunt set up ahead of time in order to, again, help publicize this weekend's Daytona 500.
It was still great.
But to see a picture of the number 18 racer with a wheel lock on it was funny.
Yes. Now, if we could just figure out how to do that at the track.
Right. Or just put a lock on the new charter system of team ownership.
And that too.
Now being employed by NASCAR Sprint Cup Series. How is it going to affect driver pay? That's actually been a question that's been coming out for a while now, and it may not actually affect their total, but it will affect how they earn that money. It used to be that the driver was paid based upon a purse for a particular race where the said driver finished, and then contingency awards the driver may have accrued throughout the course of a race or a season added all of that money into it, and then you add in their sponsorship deals to the point where you get a Dale Earnhardt Jr., the most popular driver in NASCAR for Infinity and running, making $22.5 million in 2015 alone, according to Forbes.
Oh, so you're talking about how they actually should be earning money.
Exactly. According to NASCAR's chief operating officer, Brent Dewar, it's going to change. States that a fixed portion of any purse is going to go to the charter team, another portion of that to the charter teams based upon a 3-year performance scale, weighting the most recent season more than 3 seasons ago. In other words, what have you done for me lately? For non-chartered teams, they also get a fixed amount, but it's only about 35% of what the chartered teams make. Amounts dealt out based upon where they finish will remain regardless of charter. Same for year-end performance and bonus money. NASCAR has also said based upon performance, a team could also lose its charter or its medallion should said team finish among the bottom 3 chartered teams for 3 consecutive years. NASCAR says they would not definitely do it, but it is an option. This is kind of... I'm not a big soccer fan, but I've always heard about how they do things over in Europe. You get that Europe Premier League, I think it's called. And if you finish at the bottom of that league, you end up dropping down one league, and the winner of the, I guess, what would we call it, the Xfinity series, equivalent of the European Premier League, they move up into the top level to see if they can manage things.
Can we just call this a mess?
It is. It's an absolute mess.
There's other words that I would use to describe it, but John would need to use a dump button.
Yes. And Don Crawford doesn't want to pay that fine because I know that we don't have it.
Yeah, exactly.
Furniture Row Racing building upon their chase run in 2015, garnering a little added sponsorship in 2016. Now, of course, you had Furniture Row Racing. They just added on for a handful of races, Bass Pro Shops. Now they get Auto Owners Insurance as listed as one of their primary sponsors. A 3-race deal going to cover ladder races of the year. The Brickyard 400, the Southern 500, and this fall's Martinsville race, the Chase's 7th race. So nice little pickup by them. They're starting to get out there, and how many times have we said winning is going to cure a lot of problems?
It's performance-based, Steve.
Absolutely.
If you perform, this is what happens. And this is outstanding for Furniture Row. They brought in Martin Truex Jr. Never in a million years. I mean, we know the caliber of Martin Truex Jr.
Sure.
But for him to jump in the car and do what he's done thus far has been beyond exceptionally amazing. And now they're actually bringing in the money. It's great to see them get some help on the back end with a sponsorship. It's been awesome.
I know that they have just made a switch over to Toyota.
Yes.
They have a deal where they are partnering up. They have a technical relationship, if you will, with Joe Gibbs Racing. You and I have talked about the fact that Joe Gibbs doesn't really seem to share a whole lot of information.
We saw that already this week.
Yeah. So is this a step back year for the 78, or do you think he'll be able to overcome some of those hurdles?
I think, and it's really, really early in the season to try and figure that out at this point. I think by the end of this season, though, when we hit chase time, if Martin Truex Jr. is in the chase, it's because they've been doing the right things. But if he's not, this is going to be a step back for them in several ways. Because one, all the work that they did to get to that pinnacle of where they were running for the top, the championship four, is now kind of set back a little bit.
Yeah.
I wasn't too keen on the Chevrolet, moving from Chevrolet to Toyota because of that reason. Number two, we talked about it. You just brought it up. The whole technical working with JGR. I don't see that working in Martin Truex Jr.'s strong suit because he had a chance to work with a JGR teammate well, the associated part, and they left him high and dry.
Yeah. It's unfortunate, but true. Over to Stewart Haas Racing, also making a sponsorship announcement leading up to this weekend's of racing, stating that their partnership with Mobil 1 is expanding out. The synthetic oil brand going to be a primary sponsor on 3 of the 4 Stewart Haas Racing cars throughout the season at different times. While the races were not announced, Mobil 1 will see hood time obviously on the 14, as per usual, but they'll also see hood time on Kevin Harvick's 4 and Danica Patrick's 10 car. When not the primary, they're also going to be featured on all 4 Stewart Haas Racing cars as an associate sponsor. Michael Waltrip, despite running a very limited slate of races, will also have sponsorship for whenever he wants to drive and can find a ride. Aaron's, which has partnered with Waltrip now for some 16 years, has signed a multi-year deal in which Waltrip will continue to appear in the rent-to-own company's ads. Aaron's is also an associate sponsor on the number 83 Maxwell House Toyota Camry for this weekend, which he attempted to qualify for this year's Daytona 500. By the way, he is in. The Aaron's deal will also cover the upcoming Geico 500 weekend at Talladega Superspeedway. I would think he'll probably try and at least run the 4 restrictor plate events this year, so both Daytona, both Talladega events. As far as anything else, I haven't really seen him be all that hopped up about going to any others.
Well, he's not really too good on performance-wise when it comes to the other tracks.
Well, that's also true.
Everybody's got a chance at a plate race.
Good
Even
point.
Michael Waltrip,
who actually has won there.
And he does well.
He is. He's a good plate racer.
If you look at him, he is a straight-up plate racer.
Yeah.
Go to the other tracks, not so much. But on the plate tracks, Michael's that guy you want pushing you.
Sure, absolutely, because he knows how to do it.
He does.
Yeah.
And now he did make a mistake at Talladega a few races back. It did
We all make
cause some
mistakes.
things. But everybody's human.
Sure,
People
exactly.
make mistakes.
Absolutely. We've seen it from just about every single driver that
Everyone.
has ever run in NASCAR.
Yes.
Race Team Alliance, that's that group of NASCAR organizations that make up the majority of the ownership groups in the Sprint Cup Series. They're down one legendary organization. Wood Brothers Racing announced they withdrew from the RTA shortly after learning they were not going to be granted a charter under the new system of ownership just introduced by NASCAR. It's that lack of a charter that means that should even Ryan Blaney win a race, which is not out of the realm of possibility. Ryan Blaney is a good, if young, and somewhat inexperienced driver. He's got decent equipment underneath of him, and he's got a good infrastructure of Wood Brothers Racing and their affiliations. So I'm not going to say that it's out of the realm of possibility that Ryan Blaney could claim a win. It'd be a little bit of a surprise, but not a humongous one to me.
I'm exceptionally happy about this. I'm glad they withdrew.
Sure.
Because it's speaking back to the whole charter, you're special, you're not. Here's your participation award thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And I want to see Ryan Blaney go out there and light it up this year.
Yeah. So should he even get into the chase, Ryan Blaney would still have to qualify for each event on time, which I don't have a problem with, save for the fact that all the other ones, probably going to be chartered organizations, they're guaranteed to have the starting spot.
I think there's going to have to be some type of an exception made at that point. If he does make
There
the
almost
chase,
needs to be.
There has to be.
Yeah.
NASCAR's hands are going to be forced. You can't go in to the chase and have a guy not qualify because he doesn't have a charter. That is where, people talk all the time. Things happen for a reason. This is going to be one of those things that happens for a reason.
Sure.
If he makes the chase, this charter system is going to have holes like Swiss cheese.
Yeah, I agree. Shortly after we went off the air last Saturday, after being able to report that Scott Motorsports had come to a short-term lease deal with Premium Motorsports for their charter, it was Joe Gibbs Racing and Stewart Haas Racing came to terms with the former Michael Waltrip Racing, specifically Rob Kaufman, their former majority partner, for their 2 charters. They assigned them to the 19 and 41 respectively. I know we're all shocked by that. It was not announced what the charters were sold for. That would be an interesting thing to find out.
Yeah, for sure.
Kaufman said somewhere between $1 and $9.9999999 million. He figured it was somewhere in the 7-figure deal. For the 41 and the 19 to ensure that they're in there, and for Stewart Haas Racing and Joe Gibbs Racing, which are both pretty pretty fine when it comes to money, it's worth it to them.
Yeah.
To ensure that Carl Edwards and Kurt Busch are starting every single race.
Yeah, of course it is.
But here's the thing. At Wood Brothers Racing, they can't afford that.
No, they can't. And that's what is so horrible about this whole thing. Wood Brothers is a staple of NASCAR.
Yeah, they've been in NASCAR longer than Tony Stewart's been alive.
So it's a travesty.
Now, I will say this. For those of you that are thinking, oh, well, now all of a sudden they're off in the socialist world. No, I'm a full believer in capitalism.
Yeah.
But there's got to be a situation where you understand that there are teams that are out there a heritage team like a Wood Brothers Racing, that they don't have the ability to compete right now on a level with a Joe Gibbs Racing or a Stewart Haas Racing.
Yeah, you look back at a team like Wood Brothers. Look back in NASCAR and trace it all the way back as the teams are being born and everything, and you tell me which one makes it farther.
Well, yeah, I think you've got a point. I think you've got a very good point. So now that we've noted that, let's step down a series. And let's go to Jeb Burton, despite him being the son of a former Daytona 500 winner. Ward Burton, nephew of a former Cup Series winner, and Jeff Burton. Having won the Camping World Truck Series in the recent past, he's been having a hard time getting a solid ride in NASCAR.
And I don't know why.
After a year in the Sprint Cup Series where it was proven that he was in over his head, with all due respect to him, he ran 28 events last season for BK Racing, but lost the ride after the 2015 season came to an end. I think now he might be in a better position. He lands with Richard Petty Motorsports in the Xfinity Series, so he steps down a little bit of a level in competition, allows him to continue his growth. He's slated to run the number 43 Ford Mustang. Sponsorship for at least part of the season is going to come from a company called J. Stryker, which is a financial services firm. They've actually been around for more than a century. They're traded back and forth on the New York Stock Exchange or something like that.
Never even heard of them.
I've never heard of them either, but then again, I haven't need a whole lot of financial services advice.
Yeah,
so that said,
I don't follow the stock market.
but he sets up in the number 43 Ford Mustang, iconic number, good organization that is really starting to step up not just their Sprint Cup Series, but their Xfinity Series. We'll get to Camping World Truck Series here in just a second because they're also expanding out into that. And they've got themselves a decent partnership with Roush Fenway Racing, which is where they're getting most of their equipment from. Roush Fenway still trying to kind of find their way back. They've been running through some kind of dark periods here recently.
Really.
But as opposed to Sprint Cup, they're at least highly competitive in the Xfinity Series. So I think Jeb Burton has found himself in a good spot. He's guaranteed the entire season in this car. So I think this is where we're going to find Jeb Burton really finds his footing.
Yeah, and going back just a moment ago, talking about, where he was in over his head. Yeah, he was in over his head. He was nowhere in any context ready for the Sprint Cup Series whatsoever. That would be like taking somebody from ARCA and tossing them into a Sprint Cup car and expecting them to go out there and just win races. It doesn't happen. You got to work your way up, and that's what we've seen with Austin Dillon.
Oh, yeah.
Did great in the Truck Series, did great in the Xfinity, and he's a goose when it comes to the Sprint Cup Series.
Yeah, and he's never really been all that much of a competitor for a win.
Yeah.
Jeb Burton steps in, and credit to BK Racing for giving the kid a ride. Yeah, because they recognize the talent.
Yeah,
they recognize the talent, as raw as it was and is.
There is talent.
There is talent there, but it needs to be nurtured, and BK Racing doesn't have the infrastructure to bring him up slowly. All they had was the Sprint Cup Series car, and again, he's in over his head. He only qualified for 28 of the 36 events last year, and he didn't quite have enough. Here, he's got a chance to step down into, I think, the competition that's more at his level, number one, and he's got a veteran crew chief in Drew Blickensderfer who's going to make the calls on the War Wagon. That's going to help him out as well, because
big time.
Drew has been a crew chief and a winning crew chief at the Sprint Cup Series level. He knows how to get drivers to do what they need to do to race the car right and bring it home, and possibly even put it in victory lane.
And the great thing about Drew is the fact that he can work with veterans. He can work with those that have talent. He can work with those that maybe don't have the most talent, but he can help them to harness what they have and to capitalize off of that. So that's going to be great for him as well.
Yeah. Burton, as we mentioned before, run in NASCAR's top series since 2013. He does have a win. He has 7 top 5 and 20 top 10 results, but all of those happened during his time in the Camping World Truck Series in 2013 and 2014.
Exactly where you expect it.
Yep. Junior Motorsports announced the signing of a late model hotshot and a road course ringer to help run the number 88 Chevrolet Camaro. They're going to fill in for 5 of the Xfinity Series events, taking over that star car. Kenny Hubble, who is going to be driver of the 3 road course series events this coming season. Josh Berry, who's a late model racer, I believe, out of the Mid-Atlantic area, North and South Carolina, possibly some Virginia, is going to take over the number 88 in 2 events, Iowa Speedway and Kentucky Speedway. Not specifically sure why they chose those 2 events, but all 5 of the events are going to be sponsored by Sun Energy One. It's the largest privately owned solar energy company in the United States. They've also sponsored some of the events for the Junior Motorsports Camping World Truck Series entry as well. So in addition to Dale Earnhardt Jr. himself, Kevin Harvick, and Casey Kane, who are all going to get time behind the wheel of number 88 in the Xfinity Series, got a road course ringer, and you've got a late model kid who's going to get a shot.
Junior Motorsports has got a great way with finding talent. Cole Custer.
Yeah, I think that's all we need to.
That's all you need to say.
I love the name of this team, Wingnut Racing.
Sounds like my kind of team.
Yeah, new team in the Xfinity Series this year announced they're not going to be in Daytona this weekend. They're actually going to delay their first race until the West Coast Swing happens beginning week 3 in Las Vegas. The driver for that part-time entry, former Indycar and Formula E turned NASCAR road course ringer Jacques Villeneuve. The team is going to enter Ford Mustangs with the number 27 on the sides and the roof, sponsorship to be added later. Jacques Villeneuve
is a wingnut.
He is a wingnut, so it's quite appropriate. He's a guy who, again, stepped from open wheel racing into fendered cars, stock cars in this particular case. He has not exactly gone out and made a whole lot of friends out there because he kind of uses those fenders a little bit too much.
Yeah. He sets people sailing off into wherever he decides to leave them.
Yeah, so that ought to be interesting to see how that works out. Maybe now that he gets a little bit more time, and again, this is a part-time effort. They're not going to be running the entire year, give or take half the events this season, of which I'm sure the road course events are going to be part of it. This is a chance for him, hopefully, to learn, hey, listen, you want to kind of think about these cars the same way you think of your IndyCar or your Formula E car. You don't want to match tire to tire because bad things will happen.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so straight out question.
Okay.
Okay, Jacques Villeneuve. Is he going to make it or break it?
He'll break more than he makes.
I'm just going to straight up say he's going to break it all.
Oh, down to the Camping World Truck Series. Richard Petty Motorsports, we just announced expanding into the Xfinity Series. Also, going to expand out to run the 2016 schedule in the Camping World Truck Series.
I like this. This is good.
Petty has teamed up with Empire Motorsports. They've entered into what they're calling a driver development partnership for 2016. They're going to put the number 43 on the side of some F-150s, and they are going to be driven by a slate of drivers. Last night, Austin Hill raced and was actually able to finish. He was able to avoid the big mashup that happened when the big one occurred.
Yes.
He's only 21 years old, but he's not going to drive the entire season. There's a roster of other drivers that are not announced that are going to fill out the 2016 schedule. Regardless of who the driver is going to be, the crew chief is going to be Michael Cheek. And Michael Cheek is very familiar with the Petty organization. He's been working there now for 20 years. Petty Garage going to be the sponsor on the hood for the season. So I think that's a good thing. Again, this is a driver development deal. We've seen how Hendrick Motorsports, previously Richard Childress Racing, and it looks like he's kind of getting back into that, at least kind of putting his toes into the water in the Camping World Truck Series, certainly doing a nice job of it, or trying to do a nice job of it in the Xfinity Series. Stewart Haas Racing continues to talk about it. Junior Motorsports certainly doing it for Hendrick Motorsports as well, in that you're going out, you're finding this raw talent in Eric Jones, a Cole Custer who you just mentioned a moment ago. Daniel Hemrick is a guy who I'm thinking about this year who might be taking that step up. Rico Abreu. All of these guys being signed on to driver development deals for the bigger organizations. They're going down, they're running Kyle Busch Motorsports trucks, they're running Thor Sport Racing, they're running Red Horse Racing, but they're all being watched, and as they come up, they'll go into a Richard Childress Racing or a Roush Fenway Racing or a Hendrick Motorsports effort through Junior Motorsports, and they're moving up in the world. And this is how it's being done. Richard Petty Motorsports, Richard Petty knows that while he may not be around for a whole lot more years, with all due respect, we're all mortal, and let's face it, Richard Petty he's got more days behind him than he does in front. As much as we love to talk about him and love to see the man in the cowboy hat and the sunglasses at the track, but he is thinking about the future of this organization.
Yeah, he's being a businessman. He's looking at the team.
Yeah.
And the thing is he realizes he doesn't have that farm system, so to speak.
Yeah.
When you have all these other drivers, like you've mentioned, they're running for all these development programs for these other teams. As you're a development driver for, say, a JGR or a Richard Childress or a Hendrick, you kind of start. You're loyal to them.
Sure.
Because they gave you that chance.
Yeah.
So say somebody comes up through a JGR developmental program, doesn't necessarily mean they're going to go over and run a Richard Petty car. To step in for somebody. They're going to be more loyal to who gave them their shot.
Exactly.
This is Richard Petty's chance, like you said, to take the business, and he's thinking about the long term. He's bringing that farm system in. He's realizing what he needs to do. He needs to brand some loyalty with some drivers that are up and coming and are working into the sport, and this is their opportunity. He gives them chances. He brings them back. They get a little bit of warm and fuzzy feelings, and then he's got a chance to put somebody up and find raw talent like a Cole Custer, Rico Abreu, or the latter, Eric Jones.
Yeah. Rico Abreu, by the way, after last night, he was one of the ones involved in that massive pileup, had a really good outlook on things.
He did. And I will give him an A+ for his interviewing.
Sure.
Because he's cool, calm, collected. He talks about it, but then he goes right into, talking about his sponsors and, thanking the people that make it possible each and every week for him. So I'm excited. And I'll tell you right now, I'm a Rico fan.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what he does. As for him, just before they got into racing, Safelite Auto Glass and ThorSport announced a deal where they have become the sponsor for that 2016 Rookie of the Year candidate, Rico Abreu. They're now on the truck that's going to be driven by him. It's the number 98 Toyota Tundra. It's an agreement for the entire 2016 season between ThorSport and the now largest auto glass specialist in the United States of America. So I'm very happy to hear that he has that backing, and I'm sure ThorSport is pretty happy to have that as well. Major merger taking place in the Verizon IndyCar Series. One team now becomes a 4-car operation as Brian Herta Autosport has come to an agreement with Andretti Autosport to combine their 2016 efforts. So Andretti Autosport now adds the number 98. That's a Honda-powered entry. The agreement brings over all the crew members from Brian Herta Autosport to work on and pit that racer, so nobody's out of a job. Herta's actually also got himself a job now. He's going to remain with the car as race strategist and team driver coach, since he was once a driver himself. At this time, the number 98 doesn't have a driver, but the organization promises an announcement soon. I was starting to go through dates. Yeah, they've got middle of March, and then they're racing in St. Petersburg, Florida.
Yeah.
I think you might want to find a driver.
Yeah, we are less than a month out.
Better go, boys.
Go.
Find them quickly.
Something.
Absolutely. Last week we mentioned this moronic Boston-based group that's opposed IndyCar's planned Labor Day weekend event up there on the streets of Boston. Well, for every action, as the old saying goes, there's an equal and opposite reaction.
Yes.
That brings us to another Boston-based group. They are named Friends of IndyCar Boston. They have started their own petition to show support for the upcoming Grand Prix in Boston and run along the South Boston waterfront. The petition in support already boasts some 1,400 signatures, which means that as of press time last week and then this week, the group in favor of the IndyCar Series already has more signatures than the group that is opposed to it. They're soon going to be presenting that petition to the Massachusetts Governor Charlie Baker, along with Boston Mayor Marty Walsh, among others. The opposition group had cited questionable environmental and noise concerns for the decision to request the race be canceled. The group in support of the event states in the petition, quote, the race will bring, quote, a significant amount of tourism and economic benefits to the region on a weekend that is typically a downtime for the industry in Boston.
I don't understand why you'd be opposed to this.
Because you're a moron.
Well, yeah. I mean, you're probably standing there with the Save the Trees shirt on and all that stuff, and you're eating some weird foods.
Let me mention this.
And Murder, She Wrote is on TV.
It's been a long time since I've been up in South Boston, but my dad was born. My dad was a Southie.
Yeah.
As they call him up there. Southie's got a reputation. The reputation has nothing to do with trees. There isn't a tree to be found in South Boston.
Somewhere.
It's a city.
There's a tree.
They're on the waterfront. There's no tree in South Boston.
Next to a van down by the river.
Exactly, and that's exactly where all these people that are in opposition are living. When we come back, we'll continue on with some Verizon IndyCar Series news. Got Formula One, Formula E, NHRA news.
Oh, yeah.
We got all kinds of stuff to go here in 30 minutes to do it in. Eastbound and down, boys.
WYDE FM Coleman, WDJC HD3 Birmingham. This is Superstation 101.
Springtime is almost among us, and with spring comes new things, like spring cleaning and starting fresh. How about this spring be the time you start fresh and finally put down those cigarettes? This could be the best time to finally do what you've always wanted, whether it be for yourself or for loved ones. You can finally drop those cigarettes with the help of Wild Vapors in Sylacauga and Alexander City. Eddie and Shelley, the owners, were once former smokers themselves. They know firsthand the struggle. They started Wild Vapors because they knew they could offer something the other places couldn't. They have their very own signature formula that has helped so many others to finally put down cigarettes. With their unique blend, they use only the highest USP ingredients and leave out all those artificial sweeteners and other unnecessary chemicals, all made up in an off-site clean room. They're located in the Sylacauga Walmart Shopping Center and Alexander City, but they can also take orders over the phone and mail in your products. Call 256-369-2569. That's 256-369-2569. Stay on track with Wild Vapors.
Tony Stewart wins the Cobalt Tools 400.
This is Tony Stewart here to tell you about a way veterans and service members can get on the fast track for well-deserved benefits. It's called eBenefits, a website created by VA and DoD that gives veterans, service members, and families instant access to more than 40 benefits and services. It's a way to serve those who have served us. To get started, just go to www.ebenefits.va.gov or just do a search for VA eBenefits.
Brought to you by the Department of Veterans Affairs.
Hi guys, Jim here from Shop Talk, inviting you to tune in every Saturday from noon to 2 right here on Superstation 101. We're going to talk about your car, somebody else's car, maybe my car. Tune in every week right here, noon to 2 on Superstation 101.
The only show that covers NASCAR, Indycar, and Formula One. The fastest hour in radio on Superstation 101.
Welcome back in. Fastest hour in radio, rolling on last half hour of the show. And as we're talking about the Verizon IndyCar Series, as we get into this season of Sprint Cup Series, the drivers, some of them anyway, are being asked, are you thinking about running the double, the Indy 500 and the Coca-Cola 600 on the same day? And only a couple of drivers really are kind of thinking about it. AJ Allmendinger was asked about it last Wednesday before final practice for the Can-Am Duels on Daytona Thursday. And when Allmendinger was asked if he was considering running the double Indy 500 Coca-Cola 600, he responded, quote, "Never again," unquote, adding that the death of his friend Justin Wilson last season at Pocono had severely affected him and soured him on open cockpit racing. He added these words, quote, "The only way I would race in IndyCar is if they put a closed cockpit over the car and tested it, and they thought that it was a good direction and safety." Allmendinger has 46 starts in IndyCar, going all the way back to 2004 through 2006. He ran again in 2013 as he was still trying to come back from his suspension from NASCAR because of some illegal substance use. He grabbed 5 wins during his time in the series. The other driver who might be interested is Kurt Busch. Said that at this time he's unsure if he could fit it into this year's schedule. Said he'll know more sometime next month, instead wanting to concentrate on Daytona at this time.
Yeah, that's what everybody wants to concentrate on right now. Don't talk to me about later on.
Yeah,
Talk to me about Daytona.
And we know that, Kurt Busch stepped into the car. He was the Indy 500 Rookie of the Year last year, finished in the top 10. He was 6th overall. It was a good run for him in 2014. Allmendinger, I think, would probably do a fine job of it, but I don't know if I'm JTG Dougherty, I want him to do that, because at this point in time, they're that team that's looking to gain that solid foothold and advance up to at least become one of those mid-tier teams. I don't know if I want him splitting his attention away from my efforts over here and getting ready to race the Coca-Cola 600. So there's the problem in that situation for me. Stewart-Haas Racing is a little bit more solidified. We know what their equipment is. They build good bodies at Stewart-Haas Racing. They're getting their equipment from Hendrick Motorsports. You don't have that big of a step to worry about. So Kurt Busch, I could see. Allmendinger, I don't really think I would suggest doing it if you're going to do it at all.
Yeah.
For me, if I'm a NASCAR owner, I want you to do what you want to do, but understand where your priorities need to be, and they need to be within that Sprint Cup Series car, because there's your bread and butter.
Yeah, I mean, they've got some sponsorship, but I mean, you can put it like this. Look at Furniture Row Racing.
Yes.
Say Martin Truex Jr. decided he wanted to do it before they brought on, Bass Pro Shops and all. That would be kind of like taking time away from a team that we're trying to get somewhere.
Sure.
We're trying to do something. And, you brought it up. The focus needs to be on the car. We've got some sponsorship now. This is AJ. We've got some sponsorship now. We need to continue building on that. We need you home. We need you here.
I agree. Let's go back to the Sprint Cup Series, because something that I had overlooked, and you mentioned just last night, like about, 8:30 last night?
Yeah.
Totally whiffed on this. NASCAR has announced numerous changes to the behavioral rules across not just the Sprint Cup Series, but also Xfinity and Camping World Truck Series. Some of the member conduct guidelines, as they put it, are heat-of-the-moment actions or reactions either on or off the racetrack, member-to-member confrontations without physical violence, like a shoving match, a shouting match, general venting. Member actions could result in a $10,000 to $15,000 fine and or probation. If you disparage the sport and or NASCAR's leadership, you verbally abuse a NASCAR official, a media member, a fan, or anything like that, you intentionally damage another vehicle under yellow or red flag conditions or on pit road with no one around. Member actions, all of those could result in a 25 to 50 championship driver and team owner series points loss, along with a $50,000 to $100,000 fine and/or a one race suspension, indefinite suspension, or termination.
There's an asterisk next to the one about intentionally damaging another vehicle, and it says "see down low." Matt Kenseth rule. I got it. Okay. Some of that I get. I understand. I get it. But the one that I want to go to in just for one moment is the member-to-member confrontation.
Yeah, let's add this though. Let's step it up.
We're going to step it up.
Okay. This was all verbal abuse.
Okay.
Non-physical.
Okay.
Let's say it gets physical. Physical confrontation with a NASCAR official, media members, fans, etc. Member-to-member confrontations with physical violence and other violent manifestations like significant threats and/or abuse and/or endangerment, attempting to manipulate the outcome of a race or championship. Oh, that's the Michael Waltrip racing rule.
Mm-hmm.
And then intentionally wrecking another vehicle, whether or not that vehicle is removed from competition as a result or not. That's the Matt Kenseth rule. Member actions, all of those could result in a loss of 50 to 100 championship driver and team owner points, and/or $150,000 to $200,000 fine, and/or a 2-race suspension, an indefinite suspension, or termination.
Wait, what if you hit a Air Titan under caution? Is that considered
it's the Juan Pablo Montoya rule?
Right. So we've got there's a lot of loopholes in this.
I wonder if you did that intentionally.
Hey, you don't know.
Really.
A lot of this I understand.
There's so much more of this.
There is.
Targeting another driver who's in a highly vulnerable position, like already stopped with the window net lowered, premeditatively removing another competitor from championship contention.
I cut his tire.
Yeah, really. Without limiting the scope, examples could include competitor waiting for another competitor, then taking action, taking a trajectory with a vehicle not normally taken, such as from the pit exit directly into a vehicle in the racing groove. All of those could result in things like a fine and/or indefinite suspension or termination.
Is that a hit?
I mean, good night almighty.
That's like taking a hit out on somebody.
They have gotten really, really serious when it comes to dealing with what happens on the track. Again, it's the Matt Kenseth rule. All of these things have been brought about because of the situation between Matt Kenseth and Joey Logano.
But a couple of these things have been made NASCAR what it is. I mean, you look back at the 1979 Daytona 500, physical confrontation.
Yeah.
The screaming, the yelling, the fisticuffs. That built NASCAR.
I know.
That's what put NASCAR on the map. Hey, man, these guys fight and they race cars.
I could have seen maybe a fine or possibly even a slight tap of the points when it came to that, but I'm sorry, you're not going to be suspending or terminating 2 cornerstone members of the Alabama gang and Cale Yarborough, who had just come off of 3 straight Cup Series titles.
You can't wreck me, for something stupid, and I can't come yell at you.
Yeah.
I can't come yell at you, Steve.
Something's really,
I just
really
got to go
weird
say
about
that was messed up.
Yeah, what happened to the boys have
I'm
at
gonna
it?
get fined.
Because you hurt his feelings.
There is no boys have at it anymore.
Oh, yeah, apparently the boys have at it is gone. Can boys have at it at Talladega Short Track Late Model, Mark?
Good morning, gentlemen. I think I need some methadone to wean myself over all this NASCAR stuff. I'm dizzy with all this.
It's weird, isn't it?
Absolutely dizzy with all this stuff. Do you mind if I switch gears? I got a very interesting story to tell you. You guys might go, on this one.
Please do.
Check this out. In December, in St. Louis, the St. Louis Dome or whatever corporate name they have,
oh, the Edward
they
Jones
are going
Dome?
to have, for the first time since 1982 at the Detroit Silverdome, an indoor dirt late model UMP modified race over the course of 2 days in December. And the dirt late model payoff is going to be $20,000 to win.
Whoa.
And the UMP modifieds, that's United Midwest Promoters, that's a great sanctioning body. They're going to run for a $5,000 to win show each night on a temporary, high-banked, 1/5 mile track. And you think, well, how can they do that? Well, it is going to be tight.
No
But
doubt.
For those dirt late model dopes like myself, there's 2 tracks that are very awesome for dirt late models. One is Belle Claire Speedway in Highland, Illinois.
Okay.
And another one is Macon Speedway, also in the Lincoln State. So it's possible. It's going to be very interesting. It's created a very large buzz in the dirt world that they're going to try an indoor race.
That is interesting.
With that being said, let me switch gears to the good stuff, the Nitro. Remember last Saturday I told you there could be an oddball winner in one of the Nitro categories? I wouldn't call him an oddball winner, but I'd call him a pretty good long shot. It was Steve Torrance beating Doug Kalita by about an inch. I don't know if you guys got to see the Winter National.
Yes.
All 3 finals were spectacular. spectacular.
Oh, yeah.
And,
Can I just say that I was
like
pulling for Steve Torrance?
oh, well, that's cool. He's a good guy, And that just goes to show you what a little help from Alan Johnson will do. And then,
Well,
the
and we were talking about
final-
that, though. He's kind of now the answer to the trivia question. He's the first ever feature winner in the new electronic fuel injection era of that particular division.
Well, yeah, I give props to Greg Anderson. They did their homework, and it was quite a surprising event to see Erica Anders go out in the first round and Vincent Nobile smack the wall. But all the finals were real good. The funny car final was excellent, and like I said, Mrs. Late Model Mark wanted to throw a rock to the TV when Ron Capps won. But every dog gets his days. But one of the interesting races was in the alcohol funny car category, where Swedish racer Johnny Lindberg beat John Lombardo by 1/10,000th of a second in one of the closest races in the history of the sport.
Yeah,
But,
you think about NASCAR, IndyCar, Formula One, all those other guys, they will do to the 1,000th, but they don't go to 10,000ths.
Yeah, that's for sure. But it's also been Dirt Late Model Speed Weeks around through Florida, and another giant upset occurred last Saturday night at East Bay Speedway near Tampa, Florida, for the final of Lucas Oil Winter National Series.
Yeah.
Mason Ziegler out of Illinois won his biggest race of his career, edging out the man Scott Bloomquist by a mere couple of feet.
Wow.
And it's just like a giant upset. That's like right now at this point, like Morgan Shepherd winning the Infinity race today. That's how big of an upset it was. And no slam on Morgan Shepherd. I love the guy.
Yeah.
But it was quite an upset, and they're going to finish up tonight at Volusia County with the late models and the dirt modified, so it should be pretty good.
It's so much fun to have the racing season back,
Oh, man, you guys were saying that earlier, except for that baseball stuff, Steve. I have to throw
It
up
just
the wall for
it
that
just
one.
tells me there's spring in the air.
It means it's warm.
Yeah, I got you. It's going to be good, and I'm ready to go. We're just going to be about a month and change away from getting going to Talladega and the other track.
Yeah,
and,
actually, we had Burl from Sylacauga call in. You may have heard that. He asked a couple of questions about first race. So first weekend's middle of March, correct?
Actually, we're going to have a couple of practices on the second and third Saturday of March, and I believe our season opener is penciled in for the first Saturday of April. They took final bids. I tried to talk to Lynn Phillips. I didn't get a hold of him this week, and hopefully our tower construction will start here pretty soon. But I'm ready to go racing. Last night was a wild and woolly affair to say the least, and today should be interesting, and tomorrow should be interesting as well. I don't care who's on the pole. It doesn't mean you're going to win the damn thing.
Oh, heck
It means
no.
you're on the first row, and
Especially at Daytona.
We'll see how that rolls out. But last night I thought Cody Coughlin and Rico Abreu were impressive, even though they were mired in the middle, but they did okay. And
Well, and let's face it, what happened out there was not either one of their fault. They were caught up in
That's
somebody
for
else's
sure.
cause.
That's for sure.
So
Tyler Reddick.
Yeah. So in the end, I don't blame them a bit. I think that they did well. And again, we talked about it. Rico holding himself quite well in the post-race interview. He could have gotten real emotional about the whole thing, but you know what? He held it as a professional. He's like, you know what? We're moving on. We're ready to go.
He's like, hey, we're thinking about Atlanta.
Yeah, he's going to be for us dirt nuts. He's been extremely impressive the last 2 years. Running only about 130 shows all over the country, and we'll see how many can slip in between the K&N series and the trucks. I don't know if he's going to run in the K&N series, but it should be pretty interesting. And
Should be.
you guys I got to, of course, get back to work like I told you yesterday, Steve.
Sure.
I'm having a lot of fun this morning.
Oh, yeah.
So continue on with your fine show. Don't forget about the drags, and don't forget about dirt. God bless you.
We got 'em coming up,
both,
brother.
And Dirt Late Models rule, and I'll talk to you guys next week.
Sounds good. Late Model Mark, you be careful out there. We'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right. Let's get back into this here. Where are we going?
I don't know. Where are we going?
Back to IndyCar. Max Chilton, who just signed on to drive this season for Chip Ganassi Racing in the Verizon IndyCar Series, said he thinks he can make a splash in his first year, but he's not happy with the safety standards he's seen so far. As for the cars, he said they perform quite well. They actually surprised him with the amount of downforce that they feature. But as for the tracks that he's seen so far, he feels as though most wouldn't pass muster under Formula One race director Charlie Whiting. He said that some of the courses and tracks that he's going to be running on this season, probably they would be told by Whiting, change that, change that, change that. He added that in talking with several of the drivers who've run in IndyCar for several years, saying, quote, the other drivers go, quote, yeah, we've seen that for years, but they're just not interested in changing it. Chilton didn't go into specifics as to what he felt would need to be changed or what courses would need to make safety changes. Chilton drove, of course, for Marussia, now Manor Racing in Formula One for a couple of seasons, 2012 and 2013, if I'm remembering correctly. Speaking of safety, 5 Formula One engineers from 5 different organizations, they have submitted design plans for the proposed Halo cockpit protection system slated to be instituted for 2017. Another team, Red Bull Racing in particular, decided they would go ahead and submit the fighter cockpit style alternative. Fighter jet.
Nice.
The Halo design is already undergoing testing to see if one design works better than another for safety and or for driver sightlines, but no announcement has been made as to a preference either by Formula One or the drivers yet. Formula One boss Bernie Ecclestone said that the deal that would keep the Italian Grand Prix at the famed Monza course long-term has hit a snag. It was looking as though that a deal might be close as soon as a couple of weeks ago. However, Ecclestone reports that a recent meeting he's had with Monza officials, for him, puts the future of the event back into doubt. Ecclestone told European news agency Reuters, quote, "It's a little bit Italian at the moment. The only people that can sort this out are the people that are currently involved in Italy. There is no deadline. They can take as long as they like, provided it's by the end of this month."
Yeah, take all the time you need, but you got till the end of the month.
But you have a week and a half.
Yeah.
As of the time. No one from the course, by the way, has commented yet. The Sahara Group is attempting to sell off the minority interest in the Force India organization. Sahara Group currently owns 42.5% of stock in that F1 team, but in order to get the company founder, Subrata Roy, out of jail, they're putting their stake in the market to raise bail money. Roy was jailed recently when the company sold some $5.3 billion in bonds deemed illegal by the government of India. Sahara bought into the team in 2011 for $100 million, but most experts feel as though they're not going to get a full return on that investment. Meanwhile, a company spokesman said that no interested parties have come forward to begin talks, probably because you're asking too much.
Hey, you got money? No. Hey, sell your stock.
Good
Get
luck.
me out of jail.
Yeah, exactly. Practice for the Formula One season will get underway this coming week in Barcelona, Spain. Romain Grosjean going to get to be the first to take out the first ever Haas F1 team entry onto the track. Meanwhile, officials with Toro Rosso citing a late agreement with Scuderia Ferrari for putting them behind schedule on their development. Going to have a Ferrari engine under the cowl. Said cowl going to be part of a very generic car. They're not going to be done with the design of their 2016 racer until the second testing session coming up a little bit later on. They do say that the new car is almost ready, so by the time second preseason testing session begins, they'll be there.
No, my car's almost ready. It'll be ready as we roll out for the first race.
Yeah, pretty much. Not that Bernie Ecclestone asked him, but 4-time Formula One Series champion Sebastian Vettel has an idea to bring back some intrigue into the sport. Vettel was recently interviewed, said, quote, "I think primarily it should be about a sport in which the driver is the fastest. The car plays a key role today, as it did in the past, but we should not get lost in complicated regulations. The spectators must be able to identify with the car and the technology as currently as it is far too complex. Additionally, the sound is missing." By the way, I'm hearing that they're coming out with a new exhaust, which is going to be louder. Yeah, that'll solve all your problems.
Yeah, it's going to be weird.
It's just going to be a weird sound. It's going to be a weird, droning turbo V6 sound.
That's going to be a high. Now you're going to be able to hear it more in your ear, and it's annoying already as it is.
Yes, exactly. Then going on, Vettel mentioned that the dominance of one make of car is also creating some half-hearted interest lately, saying, quote, "The dominance of Mercedes has taken away the excitement from many fans." Pot, kettle, you're black. Wasn't this the same guy that for 4 straight years in a Red Bull racing car won the championship?
I think so.
He wrapped up his critique of Formula One by saying, quote, "Also, we are currently focusing too much on details. I think we must not lose the roots of motorsports."
You brought up a good point, though. If he was the Sebastian Vettel of the 4 times in a row, would he be saying any of the crap that he's spewing forth now?
No.
Exactly.
A Finnish newspaper reported earlier this week that Manor was considering running 3 drivers throughout the course of the 2016 season, a trio that would have included American-born Alexander Rossi and their 2015 driver, Will Stevens. Manor then turned around the very next day and defied those thoughts. They signed Rio Haryanto to be the full-time driver for their second entry. Haryanto was second in the final standings in the GP2 Feeder Series 2015, claimed 3 wins. He brings along with him sponsorship from his home country of Indonesia. Specifically, the government thereof is sponsoring him. weird. His entry into Formula One marks him as the first driver from Indonesia to make it to Formula One. The signing also means that Manor will feature 2 rookie drivers for 2016, and now all 22 rides are filled for the 2016 season as well.
Well, that's why they're backing him.
There
It's
you
the
go.
first guy.
Sure. A Spanish newspaper sports reporter by the name of Marco Canseco, I don't believe he's related in any way to the former baseball steroid boy Jose, is reported that the second year of the McLaren-Honda partnership could show the engines to be more powerful. That's the good news. The bad news, according to Canseco, is that the engine is, unlike Honda's road cars, very unreliable.
You kind of need that in a race car.
You really do. Reports have the turbo that the Honda team is using being larger than last year, so it'll force more air into the system and ups the power output. But bench runs, Canseco's reported, show that the turbo has repeatedly experienced failures under duress and that the engine is also overheating. McLaren Honda has stated that they're going to be on hand for this week's testing in Barcelona.
Yeah, so watch them blow up a couple engines.
Sure, why not? McLaren, meanwhile, has signed a long-term sponsor. Recently, we talked about how Tag Heuer, the high-end watchmaker, left and went over to Mercedes. Well, another high-end timepiece manufacturer has signed a 10-year deal with McLaren to sponsor their Formula One efforts. It's Richard Mille, M-I-L-L-E.
Never heard of them.
Neither have I, but hey, they're high-end. We can't afford them. That's why we've never heard of them.
That's why.
For our good friend Colt Reese over at A Little Bit of R&R Barbecue, a Michael Schumacher update.
I'm hungry now.
A free exhibit celebrating his storied career has just opened up in the home country of Germany. One of Schumacher's longtime sponsors, whose name I will not attempt to butcher, has teamed with Schumacher's family to unveil the exhibit in Marburg, Germany. It's entitled Michael Schumacher, record-holding world champion. It celebrates his 20 years of the sponsor's partnership with the 7-time champion. It'll be open for 2 years, and even cooler, free of charge to all who want to go see it.
I like that. That's cool.
In FIA Formula E news, the city of Berlin shows off their new 2016 course for when the all-electric series heads to Europe for the last few races of their second season. The 1.32-mile-long course will, if approved by Berlin city leaders and the FIA, feature 11 turns, 3 of them hairpins. It'll feature the centerpiece of the Strassburger Platz near Alexanderplatz. Where they come up with these names. It'll feature many of these buildings and the monuments that are familiar to people who have seen Berlin in movies and television, or if you've been there live.
I'm thinking some guy named Plotz probably did it.
No Alexander?
No, I'm just thinking Plotz. His name was Plotz.
A couple of incidents happened during the Circle K Winter Nationals over this past weekend, but no major injuries reported, so there's the good news.
Yes.
Here's what we're talking about. About 300 feet from the finish line, Jim Campbell's funny car engine grenaded.
Yes.
Blew up.
I saw that.
Boom.
Wow.
During that same race, his opponent, Gary Densham, who did claim the win in that matchup, had to be pulled out of his funny car when the parachutes on his car failed to deploy. It finally came to a stop in the sand trap and safety net combination upside down. Again, no injuries. We talked about safety earlier on. Amazing how things have improved. It's still highly dangerous. I mean, you think about it. In a quarter mile, you are going from 0 to 325 miles an hour.
Yes.
Give or take a tenth or two.
And you're basically slapped between 2 walls.
Yeah. And that's it. You're going in a quarter of a mile. You might have another quarter of a mile after that, not even generally. Sand trap, the net that we're talking about, you're hoping that your brakes that you pretty much buy off of the shelf and a couple of parachutes are going to help you slow down before you have to use the sand trap in the net.
Yeah.
I'm amazed that it doesn't happen more often. That shows the high level of technology that the NHRA is using.
Yeah,
and the safety factor that's involved.
Safety is predominant in all motorsports. If it's going fast, you need to have proper safety. They do an outstanding job at the NHRA.
They really do. This weekend, past weekend, I should say, was the first weekend under the new NHRA rules. They eliminated bonus points should a driver or drivers break a standing NHRA record. Well, that didn't take long for it to be criticized. Jack Beckman, who pilots the Infinite Hero Dodge Charger RT funny car, said that the idea to cut the 20 bonus points for setting a national elapsed time record, quote, has added all kinds of late season drama. He also then decided, you know what, I'm not holding back. He said these words, quote, I'm entitled to my opinion. The NHRA is entitled to make their decisions. That is a poor decision that has offended a lot of people, race teams, owners, drivers, fans. Late model Mark was one of them. It is now technically more important to be the third quickest qualifier in a heat the day, Saturday, and to get 1 bonus point than to set the all-time world record and then back it up because it's worth nothing. Beckman was, by the way, the fastest qualifier in the funny car ranks this past weekend, so he would know a little bit about it.
Yeah, I mean, you're going out there and you're trying to break some records. You want to see what you can do. You want to be the guy at the top of the peak. and now it means nothing.
Yeah,
if
effectively
you
it means
do
nothing. You had something to shoot for. You had a reason to go out there and put your best effort into every single run that you made down the course.
Yeah.
Because you had the possibility of getting 20 bonus points.
Yeah, you're
now you don't get anything.
Yeah, of course, you're trying to get that top, the fastest speed and all that, and the time wise. But when you had something else, kind of, you're kind of having a little competition with yourself.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the part of it. Again, you and I, we've had the opportunity to do bracket racing.
Yes.
And in the process of doing bracket racing, you go through this course. You're not really competing against the person in the other lane. You're competing against yourself. And if you're lucky, you get 2 passes down the track to set your time. And again, let's say that my car does, and I've got a GTO, so I'm going to be overly optimistic and say 13-second quarter mile. I don't know exactly what it'll do.
Realistic.
I've never done it.
I think we need to find out.
Yeah, I would love to. Don't tell my wife.
Cut that part out.
Yes. But that said, let's say it's 13 seconds. You've got a Jeep Cherokee, Grand Cherokee.
That'll be about 35 seconds.
Maybe less than that. Let's say you can do it in 17 and a half. But you and I end up on the track together. If I have gone down and I have got my timing correctly and I've put 13.0 on my windshield, you've put 17.5 on your windshield. If you've got it timed out correct, the way that bracket racing works is that once that green light hits, ideally, we should hit the finish line at the exact same moment. So what it comes down to is our reaction times, or whether we got it right or not. Because now all of a sudden, here's the thing. If I go down there and I run a blistering 12.8 second run, I may have beaten you, but according to the rules of bracket racing, I lost because I went lower than the time that I put on my windshield. So it doesn't matter now at this point in time whether you did 5 miles an hour down the entire quarter-mile course. You still won because I busted my time.
Right.
And that's to keep you from sandbagging.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and not to bring up the show Pinks, but, watching that show, the guys are like, I'll give you 2 car lengths. They're trying to kind of get it where it's going to be a nice. They're trying to even it out, and then you got the one guy who goes out there and he gets that 3 car length, and then he just goes and zoom down the track, and it's like, yeah, I want, dude, what
You're
the heck?
sandbagging.
Come back, you're sandbagging.
Yeah.
That's exactly. Just
I was able
bad.
to do that exactly one time. Real quick story. I had an old '91 Pontiac Firebird. Wasn't anything special. It was just a.
He's always got cool cars.
Well. You fight for him. And we went up there, and I don't know whether you were there or not. I don't think you were there that weekend. And I had set it up, and I had gone past the first round, and I was good. Get into the second round, and I've got this car over to the side of me. It's an old, late 70s Chevy Malibu, just a big brick, effectively, sitting there. And I'm looking over at that car, and I'm going, this ought to be interesting. And, of course, it's that time thing to where everyone tries to hit the finish line at the same time. Well, they take off. They took off like a good 4 seconds ahead of me. That's how slow that car was. And I'm just sitting there getting antsier and antsier because I'm watching that car get smaller and smaller and smaller. And I'm like, good God, what the heck am I going to do? Turned out my car was indeed that much faster because I caught her probably 400 feet before the finish line.
Zing!
And I just kept going, and I'm kind of looking out the side there. And once I saw her in that side view mirror, I backed off the accelerator. Because you could at that point in time.
Yeah.
That's what they're trying to avoid, though, for the most part. In this case, I could do it to make sure that I didn't bust through my time, but for the most part, you shouldn't be able to do that.
Right.
By the way, 3 well-known names in the NHRA past forming up to team with Terry Chandler of the Make-A-Wish Foundation to help children with illnesses. Top Fuel legend Jeb Allen, the 1981 champion in the division, committing $100,000, while funny car groundbreaker Don Schumacher's offered up his organization to help out as well. Allen's $100,000 is going to go towards granting 10 wishes this coming year. Schumacher's funny car program going to help by giving the VIP treatment to at least 10 Mellow Yellow drag racing events this coming season as well. This is the racing community coming through again.
Yes.
Such
as
cool
always
stuff. We're going to be joining you again next weekend on the Fastest Hour on Radio, but come out and join us today, 3 to 5, BJCC, Birmingham Home and Garden Show. Dustin and I are going to be out there, and until we get the chance to see you again, enjoy the racing.
See ya!